Parents, has someone ever tried to harm your child? A woman took my child and said my husband was the one who did it. My husband and I were at the grocery store one day and our baby was being very fussy. He took her for a short drive since moving around generally calms her down. He pulled back into the parking lot to wait for me because it only took about 10 minutes to calm her down. I was still in the store at the time. Since it was mild for the time of year, he put her in her car seat and took her to sit on a bench outside the shop. He was on a business call and had just sat them down while rocking the carrier by accident when a woman came up to them. Many people have asked to play with our baby. She has big red cheeks, soft wisps of gold hair, and the cutest toothless smile, especially when she's sleeping soundly. But her nap time is very important, so my husband was getting ready to tell the woman she couldn't play with our baby right then. She walked right up to them, showing off her casual confidence. Before he could finish telling them she was taking a nap and shouldn't be touched, she grabbed the carrier and left. For a moment, he couldn't believe someone would be so stupid as to do something so bad in broad daylight, so he said, "Excuse me," put her down as his fear grew. She stayed cool the whole time, but when he called after her, she started to walk faster than when she first came up to him. When he finally got the carrier out of her hands, he had to hold her arms because he was running so fast. As she kicks him in the shin and pulls a pepper spray bottle out of her purse, she yells, "Help, he's trying to take my baby," and calls 911. No one in the parking lot was recording the first conversation, so they thought he was really a thief. A single guy in a Deadpool t-shirt and a small, well-dressed woman. Someone hit my husband and held him down. People around him were telling the woman to call the police, but she was very good at pretending to be scared and saying she just wanted to get home. She was driving a minivan, which made things even worse for my husband. He was completely terrified when he realized that everyone in the parking lot had worked together to help take our daughter. He begged and pleaded with them, but they wouldn't listen. They kept telling him over and over that he had to lie down and wait for the cops and stop scaring a young mother. My husband finally thought of a cool way to show them family photos on his phone. He yelled, "I have pictures of the baby on my phone," because he was too scared to think straight. Which of course everyone took to mean that he had either stalking photos or, even worse, sexy photos of the baby. At this point, someone kicked my husband in the ribs really hard. I thought he was being robbed by these people when I left the shop at this point. I was yelling for help, but I was so scared that my chest tightened and I could hardly speak. It was then that I saw he didn't have our baby with him. She was being held by a woman, which made me feel better. I thought the woman might have stepped in to protect my daughter while my husband was being robbed and was leaving to call for help. Outside the store, I couldn't find a security guard, so I ran up to the people who were holding my husband down and begged them to let go and take everything they wanted. He was being held down by two men who told the woman, "Lady, we need to wait for the police to deal with him." I didn't understand why the thieves would have called the cops. I kept asking, "What do you mean and what are you talking about?" until I could make out that someone was saying he tried to take that woman's child. I didn't get it and was sure I'd heard him wrong. There are 4 kids in our family and my husband would never hurt one. He would not want to bring home another child if he was going to do something wrong. I tried over and over to understand what the man was saying, and finally I did. I looked for the woman with the baby carrier, but she was in the other part of the parking lot. I unleashed my inner tiger cub, jumped out of my shoes, and ran across the parking lot at top speed. I've never been to a self-defense class or been in the UFC, so all I could think of to do was grab the woman by the hair and squeeze her throat. It's crazy that no one else had noticed that my husband was telling the truth and that this woman was running away with my baby. She dropped the carrier when I pulled on her hair really hard. I was so scared and shocked that I just threw myself on top of the carrier and covered it like a blanket. I didn't say or do anything else. The woman walked away. No one tried to stop her. Even though it was clear she was going without the child she said was hers, if I watched this scene, it would be very suspicious. The cops showed up in a couple of minutes. Even after all that, some people nearby still said it looked like my husband was trying to take the baby. I was shocked when the cops thought she probably wasn't trying to do anything bad. After I told them about her, the first questions they asked me weren't meant to find out more. It was clear that they were trying to get me to drop the charges against my husband by asking me those questions. They spent more time making sure the baby was mine than they did making sure it wasn't hers. My husband had already called his brother, who works in an office with a lot of lawyers, and got in touch with one of them. This lawyer gave us great advice: get the names and badge numbers of all the officers involved, ask for copies of the store's tapes right away, and take our complaint higher up the chain if these officers weren't taking it seriously. We finally had enough proof to feel like we were being heard, so we went home. No one did anything but cry and shake until we had to pick up our other kids from school. My husband was very angry and felt powerless because there wasn't much he could do. The man had also kicked him twice, breaking 2 ribs. Amazingly and frustratingly, there were still people who stuck around to talk to the police while looking down their noses at my husband. One guy even begged the police to call CPS to make sure it was really our baby. Park lot kidnapper, I hope we don't see each other again.